you have been playing a much more recent game. Well, I've briefly started it, but you've played a lot more than me. What is it? Wulong? Is it Wulong?
I don't know if it's Wulong or Wolong, but yes.
I've seen it said both ways in different reviews.
Wulong.
So, Wulong. I like Wulong.
Wulong.
Almost like oolong tea. I might be saying that wrong as well, but yeah. Wulong Fallen Dynasty?
Dynasty, yeah. So this is
the new game from the Team Ninja folks.
I mean, also, it's on Game Pass. It's, let me just cut to some footage here. It's Team Ninja, I think. It's like...
I always get confused between Team Ninja and Ninja Theory, which is
and it's also it's Team Ninja, Koei Tecmo.
Yeah, Koei Tecmo and Team Ninja.
Yeah, I always get them mixed up. So if you don't know, this is the team that basically in the last few years have done Neo 1 and Neo 2, which I suppose the best way to describe them is they definitely fall in the Souls-like camp, the way in terms of how you level up and the action, but I feel a little bit more arcadey and loot driven, than the likes of Dark Souls and such. So Wolong is the newest, entry into the studio's, I suppose, itinerary, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, it's really good. I've played the first few hours, so just based on that alone, I can say that I'm really enjoying the game. It feels like Sekiro and I don't know. It feels like the child of Sekiro and Neo. Let's just stick with something they've done before, because the focus here is on, they've got an interesting system which focuses on the likes of deflecting and parrying and timing your attacks and such. But it's definitely more arcadey feeling. I think you'll agree that even though you haven't played as much, it doesn't have the same rhythm as a Sekiro.
No, yeah.
Whereas Sekiro is very much, it feels like a deliberate, you'll play defensively, block, sort of try and gauge how your enemy's attacking and try to react to them. This feels a little bit more forgiving, that you 100% should be deflecting where you can because you're rewarded for it. But because it's more arcadey, you can be a lot more aggressive and do lots more flashy things.
Yeah.
But I suppose on that, let's just have a closer look at this game's combat system. So if you are watching the footage, and if you're not, just imagine there's a bar at the bottom of the screen. That is your spirit bar. So the spirit bar moves between red on the left and blue on the right. And the way it works is pretty simple in that when you land an attack, you generate spirit, so it fills up with blue. But pretty much everything else you do, whether it be dodge or hold block or do a special attack, drains your spirit and moves it to the left, to the red side. So the balance of this game is quite interesting because obviously you're trying to keep it somewhat in the middle, skewing it to the right side so you can build up spirit to do attacks, while not blocking too much that it fills up too much to the red, which will stagger you, opening you up for attacks.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know, how long did you actually play the game? Have you made it to this first boss or not even?
I have made it to the first boss. I haven't beaten him.
Okay, so that's like the first half an hour at least you've played.
Yeah. And from what I've heard, and I think you even said as much on Twitter, that this first boss is a gigantic skill check at the beginning of the game, which is a bit strange.
It's weird because, so you shared the GameSpot review in the Discord earlier this week and I read it, and I can't remember who reviewed it, but they outright said
Richard
that,
Wakeling.
Yeah, so he outright said that the first boss is like I'm definitely paraphrasing. This isn't the exact wording, but it's unnecessarily difficult. Like a very weird skill check because it is unnecessarily hard. And it's enough that it will scare gamers away thinking like, oh my God, like if this is the first boss, I'm never going to wrap my head around this game.
He said it was the hardest boss he fought until about 20 hours in.
Yeah, but the reality is that I think Wulong, it really throws you in the deep end and it does a pretty average job of onboarding you. Like there are screens and tutorial tips like this is your attack button, this does this, but it front loads a lot of information. And by the time
I think it does a poor job of explaining how to balance that spirit gauge. Like I think your explanation is correct, but it's like they don't really say, oh, you should aim for this. It's just like this increases it, this decreases it.
They tell you what it does,
go.
but they're not like you should be aiming to keep it more blue before you do things.
Exactly.
So what happens is when you get to the first boss, they've obviously designed it that like it's a roadblock because they want you to put everything they've told you together and put it into action. Because like I died a few times to the first boss, it was difficult. But now that I've moved past this barricade, I'm like, the game's actually not as inaccessible as one might think. Like it's still challenging, no doubt. But I think once you wrap your head around, okay, you can block and you can parry, or you can do neither and just, you know, hang back and build up your spirit patiently and use abilities, etc. It's not as hard as the likes of Neo. Like I haven't played Neo 2, but I remember playing Neo 1 and a lot of those bosses, I was like, oh my God, like this is impossible. I don't know how I'm going to do this. Whereas the boss, I've done maybe 3 or 4 bosses in the opening 3 hours. And yeah, some of them I killed first time, others I died like a handful of times. And I was like, oh,
so it is
still,
if I'm not mistaken, because Neo and Neo 2, if I'm not mistaken, were very stage-based. Am I right in saying this is the same?
It's the same, yeah. So if you've played either of those games, again, I haven't played Neo 2, but I imagine it's got a similar structure. But you're basically being dropped into hubs or just stages. It's not this massive open world that you can backtrack. Like at no point can I turn around and run back to the opening area. Like I can load back into the opening area or the first stage.
But it's not a seamless world.
It's not a seamless world, no. There are side quests. I haven't done any. I've just been mainlining wherever the story puts me. It's like this is happening, you're in this area, go forth and do your thing. But I think sorry, just to keep comparing to Neo. I mean, you've played Neo 1 or 2, you've at least dabbled with both, right?
Yeah, I dabbled with both. I bounced off Neo 2 very hard because I thought the opening was unnecessarily complex. Like, I remember in Neo 2, it literally starts you off in a tutorial area and they're like, here's like, I don't know, it was like 18 weapons or 8 weapons and it was like, just pick one. And I was like, this is insanity. Like, I don't even know how enemies are going to fight me. And now you're telling me to pick a weapon. And all these are so different. And then I played the opening area and I was like, I don't think this is for me. So I just was not into it at all.
So Neo 1 was similar in that you have a whole lot of weapons. I mean, I think when you choose your character, you can be like, this is my starting weapon, although you can change it very quickly. But where Neo was way more challenging was every weapon had different stances. It was like a light stance, a medium stance, a heavy stance. And then
I do recall
with you know, attacks in those stances. So it was kind of tricky figuring out like what stances should I be using against what enemies? Does it matter? Can I just button mash? Wulong is literally you have a basic attack and a spread attack, which again, that's not all you can do, but it's a lot more palatable. It's a lot easier to say to somebody, hey, you can push square to do a basic attack, triangle to use a spread attack when you've got spirits, you know? And then, you know, then the pepper in complexity of, you know, if you've got spread, you can hold this button and push that to do a fancy attack. You can do magic. But just off the bat, it's funny because they do front load a lot of information, but the game on that front is still way more accessible. Like you can pick it up and just know these are my basic attacks, which is quite cool.
I think approachable has been a sort of common theme in a lot of the writing I've seen of this game. Like everyone's like, this is way more easy to get into than Neo and even Sekiro, because like, for example, the parries, you have one parry for all attacks. Yeah. Whereas in Sekiro, you know, your parries worked for certain attacks, but if you had a thrust attack, you had to do something different. And, you know, but in the same vein, there's something about this parry that maybe it is just a thing of learning the muscle memory and that, you know, that had to, when I was first playing Sekiro, it took me a while to understand the rhythm of that game. Yeah. But I don't know what it is with this parry, but it just feels... slow. It feels like it's not responding when I want it to respond. So I have to like anticipate the timing a lot more on the front as opposed to like trying to get it in time, where Sekiro was very much like, this is frame perfect parrying almost.
I think the difference there as well is that with Sekiro, it was like, you know, you got to get that frame perfect parry. Here, the window feels a lot more forgiving. But
Yeah, much larger.
I do think you need to nail it a bit earlier. But this is what we were saying to you in the Discord, where you almost need to make it muscle memory that you hold block, because you can hold block and then you can still do the parry while blocking. So you almost need to get into this habit of you hold block whenever you're fighting, and then, you know, if you miss a parry, it's cool. You're still blocking. You won't take any damage. But if you land the parry, like, cool, you generate a lot of spirit, you deflect the enemy, etc.
Yeah, because if you get hit after a failed parry, you take a lot of damage.
You take a lot of damage, yeah. But it's an interesting game, and I appreciate, you know, them trying to do something different. Like, I think it's, again, I'm only 3 hours in, and obviously this game, I think, is in the 20, 30, 40 hour.
I think most reviews said they finished it within 30 to 40, yeah.
So, like, early days, I mean, maybe by hour 10 or 20, I'm like, man, this system gets boring real fast. But my initial impression is it feels fresh and it feels fun and engaging. Like, when you start figuring out how to parry, it is like Sekiro, it's very satisfying, because you rush into combat head first and you're like, I'm not scared. Like, I know I'm going to deflect this and look real badass killing these enemies. There's a whole nother system we haven't touched on, which I'm still trying to wrap my head around. Do you know anything about the morale and fortitude?
No, I haven't really looked at those yet.
Because when you play the game, they also give you some explanation. I'm like, I don't know what this means. But you'll notice that throughout the game, you'll be raising flags and doing...
Oh, the morale is the number, right?
It's the number. So
okay, I don't know what that does.
So my understanding, okay, I could be getting them mixed up, okay, but fortitude is a permanent number. So when you raise flags, your fortitude goes up from 0 to, let's say, 20, depending on how high you raise it. Your fortitude compared to an enemy dictates, if I'm not mistaken, how much damage you take from them. So if you've got 10 fortitude and you go up against an enemy with 20 fortitude, you can fight them, but you're going to take a lot of damage from them.
Okay.
So you'll see now, if you're watching the footage, I'm about to raise a flag. Come on, put it in.
And there's two different flags. There's like the main flags and then like medium flags.
So my understanding is that fortitude is fixed. You raise it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. Morale is a number that is linked or runs alongside your fortitude, in that when you kill enemies without dying, you raise your morale. You raise its number up. But if you die, you lose your morale and it falls back to your fortitude number. This is just like my basic understanding of the system. And I could be getting it completely wrong.
Isn't it if you kill the enemy who killed you, you regain that morale?
So if you die, you lose half your currency and you lose morale. But if you kill that enemy, you'll regain it.
And also, I think I read, if the enemy that killed you, their morale goes up.
Yes.
So they become a bit more challenging to kill. Yeah.
So, like, again, it's quite a complicated system on the surface, but I think if I understand it correctly, it's quite interesting, and I think it works well in this other combat system that they've got going here. So look, again, early days, but from my initial reaction, I really like what they've done. I'm very keen to play more.
Okay. Yeah, I'm keen to get stuck into it. I reading that it is far more approachable than Neo has me way more interested, and I'll probably give it more time. I do think it is very evident that as much as people love Neo, and I think Neo is the closest analog to like a Souls-like that's not from FromSoft. Wow.
Yeah.
FromSoft definitely has a better handle on how things feel.
Oh yeah, they are masters.
There's
of
a game
them
feel that no one else is able to replicate. So, even like the sneaking in this game is strange, because it's like, oh, just walk slowly. I'm like, why not make a button that lets me pull forward on the analog stick fully while still being quiet? Like sneaking in Sekiro, you crouch down, because
you forget.
Pulling through, like pushing the stick only half doesn't feel great. Like it just feels strange. So,
but you do forget that pre-Sekiro, the From games are the same. You just walk up to a person.
That's fair. That's a fair point. And to be fair, oh no, Elden Ring wasn't the same.
Elden Ring you could actually crouch. Yeah. No, but what I'm getting is, like, you're right. This is a modern day game. Like, why isn't there a crouch button or a sneak thing?
Yeah,
it doesn't have
if
to
you're
be
going to implement a sneak, it just feels wrong to like slowly push forward on your stick to walk very slowly. It just doesn't feel nice. So Yeah. Anyway, I'm very keen to give it a go, and I'm glad you're enjoying it. I always find these sorts of games are fun to play in tandem with other people, because you kind of experience things in a similar order. So, yeah.
Oh, last thing I will say, there are AI companions that are introduced in the second level.
Yeah, apparently they're quite frequent.
So yeah, you meet a bunch throughout your story, and you can keep them with you. So they don't necessarily dish out a lot of damage to enemies, but they are very good at drawing aggro.
Okay.
Even on that front, like, it just makes the game a little bit more accessible, which is quite cool.
I was going to say, I wonder if that's why some of the bosses feel a lot easier as well. I guess it's almost like summons in Elden Ring. Definitely, a lot of people use those, and that's primarily why they found it a bit more approachable. So, yeah.
Well, cool. There you go. Wulong,
Wulong, Wulong for
whatever
Dynasty.
it is. Good time. Very keen to play some more.